Mother Nature never fails to surprise us with something astonishing and unusual from time to time. Breathtaking beauty, rushing waterfalls, snow-covered mountains, and pristine blue rivers are a pretty common sight. However, there will always be news about something totally different that will surely grab eyeballs. From frozen methane bubbles in Canada to blood waterfalls in Antarctica, here are 15 strangest phenomena that are too real to ignore. Let's start off this list with number 15, light pillars. Light pillars look like something straight out of a dystopian movie. Vertical beams of light stretching into the freezing night sky, as if some unseen force is pulling them upward. But no, aliens aren't finally making contact. This bizarre optical illusion happens when frigid air transforms moisture into tiny floating ice crystals. These microscopic mirrors reflect light from street lamps, car headlights, or even the moon, creating eerie columns that seem to hover in the sky. Most often spotted in the Arctic, Canada, and parts of the northern US, light pillars don't move or flicker like the northern lights. They just stand there, impossibly still, as if someone took a highlighter and dragged it straight up into the atmosphere. They appear and vanish with changing temperatures, and their silence makes them feel almost unreal. You don't just see a light pillar. You experience it, standing in the freezing dark, watching the sky shift in ways it shouldn't. Number 14, sky mirror. For just a few days every month, a secret island off the Malaysian coast turns into a living illusion. Sasaran Beach, known as the sky mirror, transforms into an endless reflective surface during the full and new moon phases when the tide is just right. The shallow water spreads across the sand like polished glass, reflecting the sky so perfectly that people look like they're floating in midair. It's the closest thing you'll get to walking in the clouds. Getting there isn't exactly simple. You have to take a 30-minute boat ride from Kuala Selangor, and timing is everything. Show up at the wrong moment, and the entire thing is underwater. But catch it at the right time? You'll step into a world where sky and earth blur into one. People come for the surreal photos, but the real magic is standing there, ankle-deep in water, realizing that for a few brief hours, the horizon doesn't exist. Number 13, fairy circles. Drive through Namibia's Namib Desert, and you'll see something weird. Thousands of barren, perfectly circular patches of earth spread out across the landscape, as if someone had stamped the desert with an invisible ink pad. Locals say they're footprints of the gods. Scientists? Well, they took a little longer to figure it out. For years, theories ranged from underground gas leaks to aliens. But the truth? A brutal battle between termites and thirsty plants. Water is scarce in the Namib, so plants fight for every drop, creating patterns as they compete. Meanwhile, termites burrow beneath, clearing patches of land for themselves. The result? A vast, eerie network of circles stretching across 2,500 kilometers, visible even from space. But even though science has an answer, standing in the middle of these strange, barren rings still feels unsettling. Like something bigger is at play, something we might not fully understand just yet. Number 12, turquoise ice, Russia. Most frozen lakes turn into dull, white wastelands, but not Lake Baikal. When winter grips this Siberian giant, the world's oldest, deepest freshwater lake, the ice turns into something otherworldly. Instead of a lifeless sheet of white, Baikal's surface fractures into towering shards of glowing turquoise ice, so clear you can see meters below. It looks like a frozen ocean that cracked into a million pieces and got stuck in time. This happens because Baikal's water is insanely pure. When it freezes, it does so almost without imperfections, allowing light to pass through it in a way that makes the ice glow electric blue. As the ice shifts and cracks, enormous slabs push upward, forming jagged peaks that sparkle in the sun like frozen gemstones. You can even walk on it. It's so thick that people drive across it in winter. But the real magic? When the ice sings. As it expands, Baikal produces deep, echoing booms, like the lake itself is alive. Number 11. Eternal Flame Falls. In a quiet forest in upstate New York near the Canadian border, there's a small waterfall with a fiery secret. Nestled behind the cascading water, a small flame flickers, seemingly defying nature. This isn't magic. It's a natural gas seep, where methane slowly escapes from underground and ignites when exposed to air. The flame, about 8 inches tall, is usually sheltered enough by the waterfall to stay lit, but hikers often relight it if the water snuffs it out. While gas seeps like this exist in other places, what makes Eternal Flame Falls unique is its setting, tucked away beneath a veil of falling water, giving it a mythical, almost supernatural feel. Scientists believe this seep is relatively young compared to others around the world, making it an evolving natural phenomenon. Whether you see it as science or folklore, it's just awesome. Number 10. Pink Lake, Hillier, Australia. Well, we all know that most lakes are blue. Some are green or muddy. But Lake Hillier? It's pink. Yup, actually pink. And no one knows exactly why. Nestled on Middle Island off the coast of Western Australia, this 600-meter-long, bubblegum-colored lake looks like something out of a fantasy novel. Unlike other pink lakes that change color depending on the season, Lake Hillier remains bright pink all year round. The most widely accepted theory is that the lake's unique hue comes from microscopic algae, Dunaliella salina, that produce carotenoids, the same pigment that gives carrots their orange color. The high salt content of the lake creates the perfect conditions for these organisms to thrive, but scientists still don't fully understand why it remains permanently pink. Visitors can see the lake from scenic flights, but if you're lucky enough to visit by boat, you can swim in it. Just don't drink the water. It's saltier than the ocean. Number 9. The moving rocks of Pinnacles Desert. In Australia's Pinnacles Desert, something strange is happening. Scattered across the golden sand, certain rocks seem to shift on their own, leaving long, winding trails behind them. Unlike the famous sailing stones of Death Valley, the mystery of these wandering rocks remains unsolved. Some researchers believe the desert floor vibrates due to underground seismic activity, nudging the rocks along ever so slightly. Others point to the region's powerful winds, though no one has witnessed the movement firsthand. And then, towering around them, stand the pinnacles, weathered limestone formations that rise like eerie sentinels, watching over the shifting sands. The contrast between the stillness of these ancient pillars and the restless rocks only deepens the mystery. Is the desert itself in motion? Is there a force we don't yet understand? For now, the answer remains elusive. Just another quiet riddle hidden in the heart of the Australian outback. Number 8. Nacreous clouds. Sometimes the sky puts on a light show even more stunning than the northern lights. Nacreous clouds, often called mother-of-pearl clouds, shimmer with an eerie, iridescent glow, transforming the cold polar sky into a swirling canvas of pink, gold, and blue. But unlike most clouds which float in the lower atmosphere, nacreous clouds form much higher, up in the stratosphere, where temperatures plunge to brutal lows. These clouds only appear during the coldest months near the poles, forming when sunlight scatters through tiny ice crystals at extreme altitudes. The result? A mesmerizing, almost unreal spectacle that looks like the sky itself is melting into a pastel oil painting. While breathtaking, nacreous clouds also have a darker side. They contribute to ozone depletion by facilitating chemical reactions that break down ozone molecules. Beautiful, yet destructive, these rare clouds remind us that even nature's most stunning creations can come with a cost. Number 7. Frost flowers. Walk across Arctic sea ice in the dead of winter, and you might stumble upon something that looks more at home in a fairy tale than the real world. delicate white petal-like formations sprouting from the frozen surface. These aren't actual flowers, but intricate ice structures formed when frigid air meets slightly warmer seawater. As moisture rises from cracks in the ice, it instantly freezes into feathery, crystalline patterns laced with salt and microscopic life. Some stand alone, fragile and fleeting. Others cluster together, forming vast fields of frost blooms stretching across the ice like a frozen garden. Despite their beauty, frost flowers are incredibly fragile. One touch, and they crumble. But for the short time they exist, they serve as tiny, living ecosystems, rich in bacteria and salt. They are nature's most delicate creations, formed in the harshest conditions on Earth. Beauty, born from cold and silence. Number 6. Combustible lakes. Some lakes don't just hold water, they hold fire. Scattered across regions once locked in permafrost, thermokarst lakes are ticking time bombs of highly combustible methane. As the ice-rich ground melts, it releases massive amounts of trapped methane gas, which bubbles to the surface. All it takes is a single spark, and these lakes ignite like something out of a dystopian novel. Scientists have even demonstrated this phenomenon by lighting lake surfaces on fire with a match, creating brief, eerie bursts of flames dancing across the water. But the spectacle comes with a serious warning. Methane is an incredibly potent greenhouse gas, far worse than carbon dioxide when it comes to trapping heat. As climate change accelerates, more permafrost melts, releasing even more methane and creating a dangerous feedback loop. What seems like a cool party trick is actually one of the most alarming environmental threats unfolding in real time. Number 5. Moeraki boulders, New Zealand. Scattered along Kokohe Beach, the Moeraki boulders look like something that doesn't quite belong. Perfectly round, some the size of a car, these massive stone spheres sit half buried in the sand, cracked and weathered like relics from another time. And in a way, they are. These boulders didn't just appear, they were grown over millions of years. Sediments and minerals slowly cemented together beneath the seafloor, forming solid stone that was later revealed as coastal erosion stripped away the surrounding rock. The result? Dozens of near-perfect orbs, washed up like the remains of some ancient, forgotten civilization. At low tide, they stand fully exposed, their smooth surfaces contrasting with the crashing waves. Some say they're dinosaur eggs. Others believe they're the petrified remains of food baskets from a Maori legend. Whatever the truth, one thing's for sure. Nature never needed human hands to create its own sculptures. Number 4. Blood Falls, Antarctica. Blood Falls looks like something straight out of a horror film, a deep red stain spilling from the Taylor Glacier onto the ice below. The eerie, rust-colored water was first spotted in 1911 in Antarctica's McMurdo Dry Valley, and for decades, no one knew what caused it. Early theories suggested red algae were responsible, but the truth, revealed in 2017, is even more fascinating. Scientists at the University of Alaska Fairbanks discovered that the color comes from iron-rich, oxygen-deprived salt water trapped beneath the glacier for millions of years. When this briny water finally reaches the surface, it oxidizes, just like rust, and turns a deep, bloody red. Despite its unsettling appearance, Blood Falls isn't harmful, but it is one of the coldest, most extreme ecosystems on Earth. The only way to see it is via helicopter or a cruise through the Ross Sea, where nature proves it can be both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Number 3. Rolling Stones, USA. Rocks aren't supposed to move on their own, yet in Death Valley, California, and Nevada's Little Bonnie Claire Playa, they do. These sailing stones have puzzled scientists and visitors alike for decades, leaving long, winding trails behind them as if they've been dragged by an invisible force. Some weigh over 300 kilograms, yet they glide across the valley floor without any human or animal interference. For years, theories ranged from supernatural forces to magnetic fields, but the mystery was finally solved. The answer? Ice. In the winter, thin sheets of ice form beneath the rocks, and as they melt under the sun, they break apart and are pushed by light winds, carrying the rocks slowly forward at a barely perceptible speed, just 5 meters per minute. Rocks with smooth surfaces create curving trails, while rougher ones leave straight paths. It's nature's version of an eerie, slow-motion dance, hidden in the desert. Number 2. Hidden Beach, Mexico. Paradise isn't always born naturally. In the case of Mexico's Hidden Beach, also known as Playa del Amor, it took a bomb blast to create one of the most surreal destinations on Earth. Tucked inside a crater on the Marietas Islands, this perfectly circular beach was formed when the Mexican government used the uninhabited island for military target practice in the early 1900s. Decades later, the blast site turned into a secluded, sunlit cove, invisible from above unless you're flying directly over it. Getting there isn't simple. After a boat ride from Punta Mita, visitors have to swim or paddle through a narrow water tunnel that leads into the open-air cavern. Inside, you're greeted by soft white sand, turquoise waters, and towering rock walls that create an otherworldly sense of isolation. It's a place that shouldn't exist, and yet thanks to an accident of history, it does. Number 1. Frozen Bubbles, Canada. Beneath the frozen surface of Alberta's Abraham Lake, thousands of ghostly white bubbles are suspended in ice, creating a scene that looks more like another planet than a Canadian lake. These frozen bubbles may be stunning, but they're also dangerous. Each one is filled with methane gas, which is highly flammable. If ignited, they could turn the entire lake into a fiery inferno. The process behind this phenomenon is simple, yet alarming. The organic matter at the lake bed decomposes and releases methane, which rises through the water. In summer, the gas escapes harmlessly into the atmosphere, but in winter, when the lake freezes over, the methane gets trapped, forming layer upon layer of bubbles. As climate change accelerates, more methane is being released, making lakes like Abraham not just a natural wonder, but also a warning sign. When spring arrives, the ice melts, the bubbles pop, and methane floods into the air, fueling the very warming that created them in the first place. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon in the next one.